Peter Parfitt, and in the next few minutes I'm going to show you how to set up the Festool TS55R circular saw into the CMS unit to create this portable table saw. Now the CMS base unit is fairly simple and straightforward. It's designed to take a number of different modules which each house various machines that Festool produce. It is very similar in concept to the MFT3 in that its legs, which fold down, are then secured by tightening these knobs all the way around. If you do not wish to use the legs, then those can be folded away, and there are rubber pads on all four sides which allow you to run it either on the floor or on another work surface. But it's very stable when it's up. There's a power socket here which allows you to plug in whatever tool you're setting into the base unit. In my case that's going to be a circular saw. And then here is the on and off switch for controlling that tool. And then around here you have the cable caddy, and you would simply take the plug it into your CT vacuum. In my case it's the CT26, so that whenever you start whatever tool it is you've got in here, the vacuum starts automatically. So that's the base unit. Now when you purchase the CMS module for the TS55R saw, this is what you get. You get the main assembly here, to which is attached a pair of black plastic clamping pieces. You have this height adjuster, which is held on via a stainless steel cable here. There is a plastic trigger retention clip, and you will notice that on that edge there are a pair of securing lugs, and these are operated from that side via a pair of screws to secure the unit to the CMS base unit. You also get, with the saw assembly, a push stick, an extension to the riving knife, and that has a special screw associated with it. You must make sure you don't lose that. You get a blade guard, and you also get three items that together form a guide fence. And I'll talk more about this when we've assembled the saw. I'm now going to show you how to install the TS55R saw into this CMS support unit, and then how in turn we put the whole assembly into the CMS base unit. Now I don't follow the Festool instructions line by line, I do things in a slightly different way, but you must follow the Festool instructions to make sure you get it right. I start by placing the CMS support unit into the top of the CMS unit itself, and this is upside down, but it's not going to go anywhere, and that gives me a very handy working surface. Now I've got the lugs which secure the base plate closest to me for this setup. Now I take the saw and I place it in front of me like so, because our first task is to install the height adjuster, which is used to raise and lower the height of the saw once it's in the setup. Now you remember the screw and the nut that we had taken away earlier. We now need to place that nut back into the recess on the height adjuster, like so, and very carefully then place the height adjuster over the handle of the saw, making sure you don't dislodge that nut. Now there are one or two things working against us for the next stage. We have to screw this screw through the base of the saw into the nut that we've placed in the casting of the height adjuster. Now there's this cable which is constraining us, and that cable can get in the way, and you need to make sure it's pulled out all the way. And the saw is too high. We need to bring the base of the height adjuster down to meet the base of the saw. so we need to lower things. Now I'm going to do it very gently, and when it is low enough I'm going to hold it in place with my thumb and finger and just make sure I can see that the hole is lined up with the nut which is captive in the base of the height adjusting unit. And I'm now going to insert the screw very carefully, again making sure I don't dislodge that nut. And I'm going to use the Allen key, which is used for the blade changes on the saw, to tighten that up. Now the first time you do this, it will not be very easy, but after a little bit of practice you'll find it's actually not that bad at all. It's like all things, practice makes perfect. And once you've got it tight, just make sure it is properly tight and you're ready to go. So that now is the height adjuster assembly fixed in place. At this stage you should lower the saw's height adjuster down to the maximum 55mm, because that does not have any part to play when the saw is installed. The next task is to install the saw into the base unit. Now on your left, this retaining clip is spring loaded and can be pushed that way to get it out of the way, which means you can then insert the rear of the saw under the rear clips, lower it and then push that forward and start to screw that in to hold it tight. And the next stage is to fit the riving knife extension, which comes with this special screw. Now in order to do that, I will turn this round. I'm going to lower the saw down to about the 20mm mark. I'm going to turn it over, and you'll see that the riving knife extension has a little shoulder. Now that shoulder fits under the riving knife of the saw itself, and you then push that up, and you're now going to align the holes with the hole on the side of the saw, and that's where we fit this screw. Now it's easier to do if you're not doing it to a camera, and then once it's most of the way in, we then take our Allen key that came with the saw for changing the saw blade and then tighten it up. Now the next stage is to fit the trigger retention clip, which is here, because you want the saw to be permanently switched on here so it can be operated from the on-off switch on the CMS base unit. So you need to press in the trigger and then push on that clip, and that's that. Now at this stage I attach the plug-it cable, because it's easier to do now rather than leaving it to later when the saw is upside down in the CMS unit. So I've plugged it in, and the excess cable gets tidied up like so. You only need enough to go to the little extension socket which is on the CMS unit, and if you notice on this ribbon there is an extra clip. You can use that to hold the cable. So we're now ready to install it in the base unit. I'm just going to release that, put it back up to the 0 position so the blade isn't sticking out from underneath. I'm just checking that on the saw's height adjuster, that's set down to 55, the maximum, so that's not in play. I'm checking that I'm screwed up tight here and here. That's done, and so we're ready to go. Now, you have to make sure you don't trap any cables. And that's in place, and we now rotate these two screws through 180 degrees, and that secures the whole CMS unit into the base. We now need to fit the blade cover. Now this has a large hole here where the blade would rise and fall. It has a tightening knob, and in the riving knife extension you'll see there's a hole. And what we need to do is to install this like so, lining it up and screwing that through like so. And that's then securely in position. I'm going to plug in the cable, which is the plug it cord, plug into the socket, which is part of the CMS base unit. So that's all connected. Well, we're nearly done. It hasn't taken long so far, but we've got to fit the scales. I've actually done mine. They come in 2 pieces, each held on with 3 screws. They can be adjusted left and right so that the 0 mark lines up precisely with the saw blade. And you can do that using a ruler or a good quality straight edge. Next, we have to put together the fence assembly. And it comes in 3 pieces. There's the fence itself, and it has these 2 channels. There's the angle unit, which has lugs here, which will fit inside those channels, a clamping screw, which holds the fence firmly against the angle unit, and it then has this calibration scale here, which allows you to rotate the unit should you require to do so. Then you have the clamping unit, which has a V-groove here, which fits precisely in the V-groove found all the way around the CMS unit, and a clamping knob underneath to hold it in place. You start by taking the side fence and sliding it onto the lugs on the angle unit. And when it's in the position you want, you tighten this up and it's held firmly. It can be put in a second position for wider stock, like so, and again we clamp it up. Then this can be inserted into the clamping unit by sliding it through there and then tightening the clamping knob at the side. And then to fix it onto the CMS unit, you just simply place it down onto the channel and tighten the knob here. And I've connected the vacuum hose from my CT26 extractor to the saw, and also the power cable from the CMS unit goes to the extractor as well. So when I start the saw, the extractor will start automatically. Now before we do a cut, just let me remind you that you should always use a push stick, and one is provided with the unit, to make sure that your fingers are never anywhere near that rotating blade. So let's do our first cut. Well, there we go. That's our first cut done. I didn't have the other bit of extractor hose fitted up here because I wanted you to be able to see what was going on. There's a little bit of sawdust, but nothing to be worried about. Well, that concludes this introduction to using the Festool TS55R circular saw in the CMS unit to create this table saw. In the next video, I'll be putting it through its paces and just show you how flexible the whole thing can be.